NoMoreStinkyMonkeys.com production. Well, this is the Freditor's 20th annual Top 10 Movies of the Year list, and this is for the year 2018. While 2018 was no 2015, I had to consider 34 movies for my top 10 list. Many years I struggled to find 10 to consider. I've been doing these lists for 20 years now, going back to 1999. They're always fun to compile. Here are my top 10 and 10 honorable mentions as well. I'll post another list of the 14 that didn't make it. And here we go, starting off with If Beale Street Could Talk. In a year of exceptional black cinema, this was one of the best films. Telling the story of a young man who gets arrested for a crime he didn't commit, and his pregnant girlfriend who tries desperately to get him out of jail. But the story jumps back and forth between the current predicament, which takes place in the early 70s, and how their love grew. It is so moving and honest without being preachy. Black Klansman, Spike Lee's best movie since 25 Hours, which was about 15 years ago. It has many stellar attributes, but comes off as clumsy and amateurish at times. The man who made the incredible Malcolm X 25 years ago should be more polished by now. But what saves it are some hard-hitting views of race relations in this country that no mainstream movie tackled before. The scene of Harry Belafonte discussing what happened to a retarded black man 100 years ago is really eye-opening, especially for a modern audience. I heard some gasps from some young people around me. Crazy Rich Asians. I generally don't like movies about the opulent rich, but this movie about the super rich Chinese has such awe-inspiring visuals that the beauty of the sets and locations becomes a character in its own right. The wedding scene alone is one of the prettiest I've ever seen. The story is generic rom-com stuff, but with the Chinese subtext, it gives it a new vision. Won't You Be My Neighbor? I grew up loving Mr. Rogers, and after this wonderful documentary on his life and work, you will gain a whole new appreciation for the man. I would gladly have him be my neighbor. Peter Rabbit. James Corden is fantastic as the title rabbit, who causes a lot of mischief in a neighbor's garden. Live action with talking animals. This is one of the funniest films of its kind, and the humans are not stupid, but interesting, fleshed-out characters. Free Solo. Breathtaking documentary about a rock climber who climbed up a wall 13 city streets high. That's right, 13 city streets. That's over half a mile high without ropes and not much to hold on to. The fact that the people filming the movie were risking their lives climbing and holding cameras on him gives you added appreciation for the film. Roma. Growing up middle class in Mexico in the early 70s was the life of the director of this film, the Oscar winner for Gravity, Alfonso Cuarón. This story doesn't concentrate on him as a little boy or even his parents, but on his housekeeper nanny who really raised him. Her name was Cleo, a beautiful tribute to a simple woman. He gets inside her emotional life, which was hidden from him as a child. He even hired an actress from his nanny's hometown to gain extra realism. That woman ended up getting nominated for Best Actress. First Man, the super serious telling of the Neil Armstrong story from his entry into the astronaut program in the late 50s to his eventual first steps on the moon in 1969. A warts-and-all portrayal of the emotional life of a man and his wife who's risking his life for his country and science. Gives you a whole new appreciation for the job they did. Not a rah-rah, right stuff kind of film. Leave No Trace. This tribute to freedom shows how people who want to live by their own rules without hurting anybody can still run afoul of the law. Ben Foster is great again as the war veteran father, and Thomasine McKenzie is very good as his 13-year-old daughter, who loves him enough to continue living off the grid. A Simple Favor. They just don't make enough fun whodunit, Hitchcockian murder mysteries anymore. Here is a great one starring Anna Kendrick as a happy homemaker and Blake Lively as a sexy and alluring super bitch. Okay, and here goes the list of the top 10. Number 10, Ant-Man and the Wasp. Just as much fun and just as funny as the original. The story of a Peter Panish superhero who is supposed to be under house arrest gets some new juice. The final scene came out of left field and put this movie in my top 10. Anytime you can get a gasp out of a modern crowd is noteworthy. Number Number 9. Clint Eastwood's best acting for The Mule, his best movie in 25 years. A fun story about a 90-year-old man who runs cocaine for the Mexican cartels from Texas to Michigan, but has fun along the way. Clint loves singing Sinatra and eating ice cream sandwiches on his ride. A Star is Born, number 8. The best first half of a movie all year. But the moment Lady Gaga does her Britney Spears impression, the movie goes off the rails. So disappointing. Number 7, A Quiet Place. Jim from The Office and young Queen Victoria have to be deadly quiet as they and their family live near some murderous creatures that can only hear. So incredibly intense. Writer-director John Krasinski does an amazing job both in front and behind the camera. Number 6, Three Identical Strangers. In a year of unusually good documentaries comes the best. The story of three identical triplets who were separated at birth by an adoption agency and only discovered each other when they were 19 years old. A wonderful story that might have made a great sitcom, but turns out to have a very dark subtext. The reaction of the perpetrators is even more evil. Number 5, Avengers: Infinity War. Josh Brolin had 2 magnificent performances this year as comic book characters. First in Deadpool 2, and then as Thanos in this latest Avengers film. The movie was incredible, had an incredible juggling act with several dozen characters and 4 intertwining storylines. Yet somehow the filmmakers let every character get a chance to shine and breathe, and each story is skillfully told. But Thanos is a deeper villain than we are used to in these films. Is he a bad guy or just pragmatic? My biggest complaint with comic book movies over, say, Star Wars is that in Star Wars, people can and do die. There is something at risk. In a comic book movie, it feels like no one can ever truly die, so the fight scenes get kind of monotonous. But this movie changes that thinking. Number 4, 8th Grade. Second best film of the summer. Probably the most honest portrayal of school life I've ever seen. A girl in the last days of 8th grade deals with her own insecurities and loneliness with a loving father but no mother. The kind of movie where every good feeling is earned, where small problems make you wince like watching someone get a paper cut, because you know exactly how that feels. This story is so wonderfully told, and it feels like it was written by a female version of me. Number 3, Green Book. I know I am biased, and I've said dozens of times before, my good friend Nick Vallelonga's cousin wrote this movie about his father. Even though I never met the cousin, I feel like he is almost family since I've been friends with Nick for so long. But attempting to put all bias aside, this is definitely one of the most entertaining and insightful films of the year. A real-life story where a politically minded black man and a bigoted Italian man from the Bronx can become friends, can give us all hope for a better tomorrow. Funny with well-deserved deeper emotions. Number 2, Black Panther. The best movie overall and one of the greatest achievements in black cinema ever. Groundbreaking doesn't begin to explain its worldview, more like earth-shattering. I was shocked to learn that Stan Lee created this character in this world within his Marvel universe back in the 60s. It's so forward-thinking. An African nation that is totally dependent on itself, that is financially sound, and even more importantly, is inhabited by a people that are proud of themselves and their achievements. A science-based society filled with mathematicians and other kinds of thinkers. Yes, the action scenes are a little less exciting than we are used to in a Marvel movie, but the good far outweighs the ordinary in this film. The filmmakers don't stand on the backs of the black artists who came before them, but rather on their shoulders as they bring us a whole new level of consciousness. Wakanda Forever. And number 1, Mission Impossible Fallout. Now, my list doesn't just include the Oscar bait. The movies that made me want to go back to the movies every week, those are the ones that make my list. The movies that make you actually want to sit in the theater rather than just wait for them to come on demand at home. Mission Impossible Fallout is that kind of movie. Amazingly, the 6th movie in the series and the absolute best. Tom Cruise is 57 years old and famously does a lot of his own stunts. Driving a motorcycle 100 miles an hour in Paris without a helmet is just one of the many crazy stunts. Set pieces in this film kept getting crazier and more fun as well. The storyline was great, The writing was strong, and the actors were all having fun. I think it's the only movie I saw twice in the theater all year. Incredible from beginning to end. A popcorn movie that should have gotten the Best Picture nomination. Every once in a while, I have to remind myself that I am lucky to live in a time in history where I get to enjoy a movie like this. And that's my list from The Freditor.